Jeff, Zach, thanks for joining me.
Hey
Hey,
Steve, what kind of
Steve.
fun do we have today?
Oh, lots of fun. Tariffs have been in the news and people speculating on what the real estate impact for on them might be. Hey, just a little notice here. If you are interested in what's in the news with commercial real estate, check out our website, selectfincap.com, and get on our free newsletter. But moving on to tariffs and real estate, we've seen some reports and estimates coming out, including from CBRE. What they're taking a look at is some worst case scenarios here. For example, on multifamily projects, assuming 25% tariffs on Mexican Canadian goods and higher tariffs on Chinese imports could drive up construction costs on those projects 3 to 5%. Now, interestingly, industrial projects would actually have less of an impact than even that 3 to 5% you could see in multifamily. Of course, if you have more tariffs on the border, you could expect to see less real estate demand on the industrial side in terms of areas right next to those border areas, particularly along the Mexican border in Texas, for example. On the other hand, longer terms, those markets will probably benefit in Texas on the border from Mexican low-cost manufacturing, seeing more stuff sourced there. Alternatively, if we do see higher tariffs on Chinese goods, that could affect major U.S. port markets, particularly the Coast ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, as well as the Inland Empire. Um, so, some of your guys' thoughts on potential impacts of tariffs and new trade policy on real estate and some of these areas on the border and around ports.
Well, so what's it all mean, right? How's that impact real estate? How's it affect me? Cost of goods go up, everything else goes up. Cost of construction goes up. You're gonna have to find new products, new ways to innovate and things like that. I don't think it directly is going to impact the same way that we think with border and ports. I think people are looking at that and all that stuff is going to go much more expensively. What I think is you need to find traditional industrial areas, manufacturing areas that have good points of logistics. So Greensboro, North Carolina, and that whole area, including Winston-Salem, they have air freight that hits 70% of the United States. You look in the Rust Belt, you have all of the infrastructure of all the highways for trucking logistics. I think you could see some big buildup there. Prices of real estate are lower than other places in the country. There's an educated and extensive labor force. I think you're going to see a lot of manufacturing relocate and a lot of real estate be built up in areas that are more towards the middle of the country that are within 24 hours of touching major areas. So I think real estate is going to shift, and I think you're going to see a migration to those areas from populations that you would see a reversal. So you're not going to, the southeast of the Sun Belt anymore for work. You're moving more towards the middle of the country. But again, that's all speculation that this stays the way it is. If tariffs are repealed or if the impact is not as great, you could see a lot of speculators talking about what I'm talking about, and then they're going to get burned because it's not going to end up happening. So it's a whole wait and see approach.
Well, way to steal my thunder. The only thing I might add to that is that I think to some degree what you might see is you've got an industrial market that was heavily influenced by port cities, et cetera. Places like Savannah, where the expansion of the ports to accommodate the larger vessels, et cetera, may have had a lot of people come in to work with the port, and now may have been paying premium rates or even built their own projects and are now seeing reductions in potential gross income. So, I mean, I think probably the biggest market to really get hit is really going to be retail and industrial. And we'll see what happens. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, and maybe it's a couple months, maybe it's years. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, and I would say also I'd pay less attention to tariffs and more attention to trade, and particularly China, because I think those are some trends you can really count on. Right now, labor costs in Mexico are cheaper than they are in China. So I think you are going to see more low-cost manufacturing going to that side of the border. So I do think there's a long-term trend of more border traffic, more coming across. So I wouldn't be so worried personally about tariffs on Mexico, resulting in lower trade because I think long term, just based on labor costs and the numbers, that trade's going to have to go up. And then along also, when you take a look at China, uh, another change is I think you saw this not just with Trump, but you saw this with Biden and the CHIPS Act. There is a move that's bipartisan, even though we act like there's nothing that's bipartisan anymore. But there's a bipartisan move to move some strategic industries into the U.S., and semiconductors is one of them. So I think it's just really baked in that Arizona is going to be the U.S. semiconductor production capital. With the investment they made in Intel and with the investment TSMC's announced around Arizona. So I would say, that would be my personal advice when you look at these long-term trends is don't pay so much attention to the tariff noise that seems to change every 48 hours. Pay more attention to global trade trends that are long-term and are going to be sustainable. And I think that does create some real opportunities in different U.S. metros that you can pay attention to and potentially benefit from.
Point.
Okay, thanks a lot. Hey, hit us on the comments section with what we got right, what we got wrong, some questions you might have for us, what we should be talking about here. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and visit our website, selectfincap.com. Get on our free real estate newsletter to see news like this and also get a look at exclusive commercial real estate investment opportunities. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Steve.
Steve.